you think of Seventh-day Adventists, what comes to your mind? There is a lot more similarities in terms of doctrine that we have with the Adventists than we do with the Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormonism. They believe in the Trinity. They believe in the humanity and deity of Christ. They believe that Christ died on the cross for their sins. They believe that Jesus is fully man and fully God. But they have a slightly different view on one aspect of Christ. Why would we even be considering them in the series called Cultish? One of the things is that they are considered the remnant church. We are the church that really possesses the full truth of what God says, specifically surrounding the idea of the Sabbath, because all of these other non-Adventist groups or Sunday keeping groups, they don't possess the full truth. So it is our job as the remnant church to educate all of these other non-Adventist groups, because they are clearly deceived, misled, and clearly disobeying God's fourth commandment to observe the Sabbath.
They believe that in the end times, religious leaders and the civil government is going to make a law that you have to worship on Sunday. And they believe that Christian churches are going to kill them. And they say that observing Sunday Sabbath is taking the mark of the beast. The easiest way for me to understand that this is very cultish is to think about their Sunday law doctrine.
Yes.
So they believe, here's what they're taught from the early days of, their prophetess, that when the end times come, remember a lot of this cult stuff is connected to end time stuff.
Yeah.
Crazy things that are going to happen at the end times. What they believe that in the end times is going to happen is that the religious leaders and the civil government is going to come together and make a law that you have to worship on Sunday.
Right.
Use knives, or you can use whatever. It's the soul that is corrupt. And how we get back to a moral rebirth in this country, I don't know, since we are slowly eroding religion at every opportunity that we have. Probably we should be debating a bill requiring every American to attend a church of their choice on Sunday. Probably we should be debating a bill requiring every American to attend a church of their choice on Sunday.
Understand Christian nationalism. It is that the idea that your nation self-identifies, understands itself as Christian, and they would pursue their good as Christians, which would include policies that would kind of encourage people to attend church, encourage people to seek out essentially the means of grace. So this would include things like, I think, Sabbath laws, which would on Sundays would essentially, we can talk about this more, but it essentially kind of close down businesses and of an emergency and essential services. And that would be a way of not forcing people to attend church or do any sort of worship, but it would be kind of a reminder for the people that this is what this day is for, and you should do it. Again, this was something that was common in the past within this country to have that have Sabbath laws. Is basically that what you're doing is it's a de facto privileging of Christianity, because which religion has the Sabbath on Sunday? Well, it's Christianity, and so you're not doing it on Saturday. You're not doing it. So you're explicitly saying this is a Christian land, and we're gonna all force you to obey some sort of Christian. And so that's the best critique. And I would just say, that's exactly what it does.
They believe that in the end times, religious leaders and the civil government is going to make a law that you have to worship on Sunday.
Again, this was something that was common in the past within this country to have that have Sabbath laws. Is basically that what you're doing is it's a de facto privileging of Christianity, because which religion has the Sabbath on Sunday? Well, it's Christianity, and so you're not doing it on Saturday. You're not doing it. So you're explicitly saying this is a Christian land, and we're gonna all force you to obey some sort of Christian. And we're gonna all force you to obey some sort of Christian.
And we're gonna all force you to obey some sort of Christian
And so that's the best critique. And I would just say, that's exactly what it does.
North Dakota used to require retail stores to close between midnight and noon on Sundays. Lawmakers narrowly repealed that law in 2019, but one House bill looks to bring it back. Michael Anthony joins us live from the Capitol to tell us more. Michael?
Good evening, Monica. There are efforts to bring back the blue law. The House Industry, Business, and Labor Committee isn't supporting it, however. In a 10-4 vote, lawmakers voted to recommend not passing it on the House floor. They heard testimony from supporters saying it's beneficial for employees to have time to spend with families and attend religious gatherings. Those in opposition argue it dampens local economic growth.
I think we live in a culture that's so hyper-focused on capitalism, material wealth, and looking at things through purely an economic lens. And there are more important matters in life than just a balance sheet.
We hope that you see that this limits economic freedom, it limits consumer choice, it turns the clock back on North Dakota.
Specifically, this impacts retail stores like your Walmarts and Targets. Restaurants, gas stations, and tourist attractions are among those that would be unaffected. Now, the House is expected to vote on this tomorrow, but some sponsors did suggest that they may change some of the language and make it more clearer and digestible for the legislature in a hope that it could pass at a later date. We'll see how this goes later on tomorrow. At the Capitol, I'm Michael Anthony, reporting for your news leader.
Read the House Bill 1150, please.
A bill relating to Sunday closing laws and retail agreements, and to provide a penalty.
A penalty for not closing on Sunday. That's what they're trying to reinstate inside North Dakota. Now, if you've been following this, you know that North Dakota has already repealed these laws, and they're trying to put them back. Now, what would be the point in doing that is in taking them out and putting them back? And as you know, this one didn't get put back, but it sure made the news a lot. This is called marketing, folks, and what happens is it creates a top-of-the-mind awareness in other lawmakers in the United States to make them think, yeah, we did like those laws, and now that we're going into a more conservative administration, maybe we can get those passed. Listen to his reasons on why he wants this to happen.
What prompted me to bring this legislation was an article by Father Dominic Bauk at the University of Mary. And he wrote an article in 2019 that I read earlier sometime last year, so this has been on my mind now for a while, but he just stressed how critical it is to have blue laws in general. Employees are working many long and exhausting hours throughout the week. Employees having additional time to rest and improve their mental health, which is a big problem in 2025. And their overall productivity. It incentivizes community and family time. People have more time set aside to engage with their family members and engage in different community activities going on. If we want to attract more workers to North Dakota, we need to be offering better wages, benefits, and policies that empower the working class.
It sounds as if it's a really good thing, but what we're seeing is that he's influenced by a Catholic priest who has the idea that church and state should be connected somehow. This, my friends, is Revelation 13 in a nutshell. In Revelation 13, nations are represented by beasts, and these beasts are allowed to have real teeth and combine with religious to make real moral obligations for God's people. This is not the way of God. God is never about forcing specific laws that are for Him on the people. The nations of the world are allowed to enforce love thy neighbor, but they're not allowed to enforce love thy God. Take a look at this decade-old propaganda that I've been archiving.
Sunday should be a weekly day of rest for European workers.
Wouldn't it be nice if the government sent us a message that they didn't think of us only as units of consumption and production and worker bees? Yeah. Just once in a week we were let off the hook and we could not shop and we could not work and actually concentrate on the whole self.
On each other.
And on each other.
As a democratic society, we want to decide to bring back some rules about what
can and cannot be done one day a week. And we might want to start thinking about ways to encourage people not to work on that day.
We have to make one day in the week give priority to relationships.
We've got to make a buck, though, Richard.
Otherwise, what will happen is that commercial pressures will run over us.
Mr. Hirsch, what about yourself? Does your religion allow you to work on Sundays?
Yes, I'm a Catholic, but that's not the point.
All people have the right not to work.
The point that I think we need to get back to is the fact that we are not being efficient. We're at the bottom of the row, our children are unhappy, most of us are unhappy, so what we're doing is not working and we've got to change it.
In Greek Orthodox, I think that there is a tradition for Sunday to be a work-free day.
It is a really good idea for people, for families, for communities to set aside a structured time in which to connect with each other. And that is at the heart what the Sabbath does.
I think it's very important, the work-free Sunday, because the family...
We are so out of step. It is just absolutely unbelievable.
Everybody needs the same day off. If I have Wednesday off, my children are not at home. My friends are at work. I can't have community. I can't meet with my relatives. I can't spend time with my kids or my spouse if we're all having different days of the week off.
And there has been a tradition for a work-free Sunday. It is the time for the families to be together, to reconcile family and work life, to have some free time to spend with your children, with various people with disabilities and everything.
It's not only that. It's that all people have the right to work, not to work, at the same time, so that they can be together.
One day free for everybody, all the family, is very, very important.
This Friday night brings a different kind of Sabbath. There is a movement to just give it a rest, and it being your BlackBerry, Facebook, Twitter. Can you live without emails for a day? The National Day of Unplugging urges the overstressed and overworked to log off and tune out technology for 24 hours.
And one of the things that's happening to us is that we're getting on these very different schedules, and we're having a very hard time figuring out how to come together. And what the Sabbath does is it creates this situation in which there's just a structured period in which we can come together.
Should the Sabbath be a day of rest? Christina, we've gone beyond the point.
It's the day on which we celebrate Jesus' resurrection is the day that he wants to keep as that time and space.
The biggest lie that has been told in churches is that Jesus himself changed the rules, amended the commandments after he ratified them with his own blood. When in fact, when the law is ratified as a type in the Old Testament with the bull's blood, it says nothing can change after the ratification of blood. Hebrews 9:16 through 22 points out that Moses himself had spoke every precept to all the people according to the law. He took the blood of the calf and the goat, and with water and scarlet wool and hyssop, and sprinkled both the book and all the people, saying that this is the blood of the testament which God hath enjoined unto you. What did he do here? Well, he's ratifying it, or as we would say today, signing the contract between what is stated and the people have committed to do. Brethren, I speak after the manner of men, though it be but a man's covenant, yet if it be confirmed or ratified, no man disannulleth or addeth thereunto. So what does this mean? Once something is ratified with the blood, say the blood of Jesus Christ, it can't be changed. And yet we have people that think that it can be amended.
So over time, we have, of course, amended the Ten Commandments. Let me give you 3 or 4 very quick examples. The Jewish Ten Commandments talked about the 7th day of the week being the day of rest, the Sabbath, because in 6 days God created the world, and on the 7th he rested. When Christianity came along, they changed that, and they made the Sabbath the 1st day of the week, because that was the day on which certain important events happened to Jesus. The 2nd commandment talks about, do not make unto thee a graven image. Have you been in a Catholic church recently? Have you been to the Sistine Sistine Chapel recently? Have you seen graven images of God and of angels and of all kinds of things? The Ten Commandments, they talk about adultery, and adultery as originally defined only limited sex with married women. It didn't apply to married men. Jesus came along and amended that, and amended various other parts.
What Jesus did was not amend it. He simply said that it's not enough that you just practice it in some ritualistic fashion, that you claim that you're holy and pure because you haven't had an adulterous relationship. He said to lust after a woman in your heart.
I understand
is
that. I
like
remember
doing
Jimmy
it.
Carter.
That's not an amendment.
Okay, but how about Saturday? How about
let's
Saturday
talk
and
about
Sunday?
Saturday.
That is a clear amendment.
The key
clear
issue,
amendment.
not an amendment, it's a different interpretation that the Christians use,
It's
but
not a different
still one day
interpretation.
a
The Christians
week.
have said they changed it. No, you're wrong. No, listen to this. The first century, the Christians allowed the Jews who had converted to Christianity, not the ones who had been converted by Paul in Greece, allowed the Jews to retain Saturday. It wasn't a matter of interpretation. They changed the rules. They said there's a different reason for it. No longer did God create in 6 days and the seventh was a day of rest. Now the first day, the Sunday, which was, by the way, borrowed by the Romans and the Greeks.
That was a discussion by Mike Huckabee and Alan Dershowitz about what we understand is going to be a major sticking point in future times as people understand and grapple with what it is in the Bible that God really intended. I know the answer to this, but I'm curious what your comments are, so please leave a comment about this specific clip right here. As a bonus, I have a clip from way back that I had archived of Clayton Morris of Redacted and Tucker Carlson in the same room discussing Sunday laws. Check this out.
He says, you know what, is working on Sundays true freedom, and basically says, you know what, all of this hard work that people are doing on the weekends, on Sundays, is having a negative impact on their lives.
It's so easy to let just work seep in. I mean, if you're home on the weekend and you have, job Monday through Friday, and you're just, I'm just going to get some work done. I'm going to go down to my office, do some work, and we get this done. But you don't realize then what it's taking away from that day of rest, that day of family, and that hour, that 2 hours just starts to snowball, and I think he has a great point.
Yeah, well, of course he does. I mean, Judaism takes this very seriously. Orthodox Jews do not mess around, and I admire this so much, about the Sabbath. And again, you see this in the Old and New Testaments. Keep the Sabbath holy. Don't work. It's almost like people, it's baked in, have always had this temptation to let work crowd out all the other things that matter. Family, faith, and they have to be told again and again, knock it off, don't work. It's interesting. You think people are lazy, but they work too much.
And it's so cool when you see businesses like Chick-fil-A on this fried chicken national holiday of today, that they are not open on Sundays, and a lot of people give them business on the other 6 days of the week because they believe in that policy as well.
Folks, it has been Satan's favorite deception from the very beginning. We see it all throughout Scripture to make the most religious people the main doers of evil because they think they're doing good. They think they're doing God's will. In the fact, in the last days, that's what's going to happen. He's going to convince the religious people that they have to do away with the saints because they are the ones that are bad. You watch, that's what's going to happen. It's already happening here. We see this as, look, Chick-fil-A is doing a great thing. Well, I sure think that they should take it more seriously. Let's have a Sunday law. Sunday law in the United States. It's going to happen. This place that has been separated by church and state for so long, it's going to happen again. Mark my words, and I believe it's going to happen in our lifetime.
The easiest way for me to understand that this is very cultish is to think about their Sunday law doctrine.
Yes.
So they believe, here's what they're taught from the early days of their prophetess, that when the end times come, remember a lot of this cult stuff is connected to end time stuff.
Yeah.
Crazy things that are going to happen at the end times. What they believe that in the end times is going to happen is that the religious leaders and the civil government is going to come together and make a law that you have to worship on Sunday.
Right.
To a moral rebirth in this country, I don't know, since we are slowly eroding religion at every opportunity that we have. Probably we should be debating a bill requiring every American to attend a church of their choice on Sunday.
Probably we should be debating a bill requiring every American to attend a church of their choice on Sunday.